Good evening, and on behalf of the Commissioners and staff, I would like to welcome you to the March 22nd City of Roseville Public Utilities Commission meeting. This 7-member commission is responsible for studying and advising the City Council regarding all utilities owned or operated by the city, including electric, water, wastewater, and solid waste. The Public Utilities Commission advises the City Council regarding planning, rates, public information, cable television franchises, and other.
Jason, I'm not sure if that means that the
concludes my report, and I'll take any questions.
Questions from, no? And, no, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do open them up for public comment,
Yeah.
just in case, just for the record.
Is
Thanks.
there anyone who would like to ask any questions from the public? Well, thank you for your updates. Our next agenda item is the Roseville Electric Integrated Resources Plan introduction. And today's presentation is going to be made by Bill Forsyth, who's our Power Supply and Portfolio Administrator. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. There are the slides. So just to give you a little overview, we're updating our IRP. Todd White, who's sitting next to me, is our executive sponsor. I'm the program manager for this effort. And Brian Shinstock is our project manager and our chief planner. And I would just like to say this effort spans all parts of the electric department. So it will have contributions from all parts of the electric department. Go to the next slide. So to give you a little background, resource planning, first off, it's really good utility practice. It's also a state regulation. We're required to prepare an IRP every 5 years. And we did our last IRP in 2018. The focus of our IRP in 2018 was really around reliability. And our current focus is going to be around the transition to a low carbon future. Next slide, please. So this is a pretty busy slide. I think the key takeaway here is the stuff on the left. That's what came out of our last IRP, the recommended actions. On the right side, you'll see those are all the initiatives we took over the last 4 years to improve the reliability of our electric department. One of the key things about the way we do planning is it's very deliberate and purposeful. So, we are looking at real futures that we think exist, and we're coming up with solutions to address all those problems. Next slide, please. So to give you a little overview of kind of the things that we're considering and the requirements in this IRP, first off is the state regulations. So this is in statute or regulations, 60% renewable energy by 2030 and carbon-free by 2045. So with that as the backdrop, the key resourcing considerations that we're going to be addressing, from the reliability side, we've got our NCPA STIG resource that is near end of life. So we'll be looking at that and decisions we should make around that. The RPP2 units that we've been doing some ongoing projects to improve their reliability. We'll be looking a little deeper at that. How does that fit into our plan for the long term? As many of you are aware, these California Department of Water Resource units that the city cited on behalf of the state, these units can burn clean hydrogen. We've been told that up to 80% hydrogen. So we'll be looking at those resources. Do they make sense for us to procure? How do we see ourselves using those in the long term for reliability? And also maintaining compliance with the upcoming state regulations. We're going to look at battery storage. How much do we need? Where should we put it? And when should we do it? Another key aspect is environmental stewardship and compliance with state regulations. We could go out and contract for a lot of resources right now, but if we say we had too much solar, we might find ourselves in a situation where we have more generation in parts of the day than we actually have load. So trying to find a nice balance of where we meet the regulations but don't create other problems for ourselves. And finally, affordability. We'll be looking to make no regrets decisions, so it helps keep rates stable. So to give you a little overview of the scope, so first off, our planning horizon is 2023 to 2035. It seems like maybe an odd 12-year window, but that's based on the scenarios we're going to look at. We're going to look at our base plan. This is the current state requirements that are in statute, in regulation. So we'll be looking at how do we meet that 2045 target. But we're also going to look at an accelerated plan. If we tried to pull all those investments back to 2035 to try to achieve zero carbon by 2035, just get an idea of what that would look like, what the cost impacts would be, what would be the resourcing decisions we have to make.
And that's not done in a vacuum. Some of the legislators have already proposed going in that direction, so we want to take a look at it before it happens.
So the key assumptions, we're going to be looking at two different trajectories. We're going to be looking at the current trend that we're seeing, and we're going to be looking at very aggressive adoption growth. And those two trajectories apply to the sub-bullets here, the customer base and the customer choice. On the customer side, we'll be looking at what's the ongoing residential growth in Roseville. We'll be looking at the commercial growth, but also the commercial fleet growth, the electrification of that in the city. On the customer side, we'll be looking at customers' choice. Customers can choose to retrofit older homes. As we're seeing, electric vehicles are becoming very pervasive. Electrification of gas appliances and looking at conservation. So under those two trajectories, we'll have a lot of assumptions around these other categories. Next slide. So this is important. I know our director said at the last meeting, we want to get public input and outreach on this effort. Kind of the way we view this, our first big push is going to be education and outreach. So we're going to have public meetings. We'll utilize some of the general information memorandums to make other parts of the city council aware of what we're doing, and we'll be providing updates to you, the Public Utility Commission, as we go. We'll be seeking input. We'll do surveys. We'll have a dedicated website and email, and we'll try to understand the preferences of our customers and what's important to them. And finally, we'll be seeking approval. We'll come to this commission to get its concurrence and endorsement on the final plan that we put together, and ultimately take it to the city council for approval, which is actually a requirement by the state that our city council attest to the veracity of our plan. And that's it. Any questions?
I have one. Yeah, it looks like hydrogen is going to be maybe a big part of the plans in the future. And I take it you certainly won't be able to pipe hydrogen to individual homes. That's just not possible, which means probably all electric. But for the utilities, does it mean piping in hydrogen or trucking it in? Any thought given to that? Because that is bad stuff to work with.
Yeah.
Which means the existing piping, underground piping, probably no good for that. That would have to be replaced.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a lot of investment and a lot of studies being made in hydrogen right now. I know that the Southern California Gas, PG&E Gas have studies that are looking at how they would retrofit existing pipelines to handle hydrogen.
Yeah, the other thing you can do is produce it on site where it's going to be consumed from electrolysis. That could be something that gets looked at. But again, then you have to store it.
Of course, then you got to, supply electricity for electrolysis, so it's a round and around circle.
Yeah, I think the key is to have a clean fuel to help meet our
Right,
ramping and
right.
peaking requirements.
It's certainly clean.
Any more, questions over here? So is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and address the commission on this topic? Any interest in public comment? I'd like to thank you for your presentation. This is very interesting. And our next presentation is from the environmental utilities, giving our monthly update. So we'll let the staff swap out here.
We have slides on that. This next one.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Devin Whittington with Environmental Utilities, and tonight we just have an update, no presentation. So we'll go ahead and get started with the update here. So the update is going to focus specifically on post collections for the solid waste industry. And what I mean by that, that's everywhere that we take our waste to either be processed or sorted. The city currently does not own any of these assets. But 2 years ago, we started exploring different options and what we can do to give the city longer-term capacity through the years and maybe bring down some of the pricing. So we currently use Western Placer Waste Management Authority, which we are a member of that JPA, and they process all of our waste and recycling, and that's just north of town off of Fitterman Road. So 2 years ago, when we started looking at this, we started looking at facilities in the region. We looked at Sacramento County, which is about 45 minutes from here. We looked at another facility up in Wheatland, which is Ostrom Road, which is Recology owns that facility. And we also got lower tipping fee prices from both of those facilities. But then when we analyzed the amount of routes that we would have to add, which would be 4 additional routes, it was cost neutral in the case of one of those. So we had a cost neutral component to that. When we looked at building our own processing facility, we actually are looking to save somewhere between $15 and $20 million over a 20-year period with a net present value. And then also more than that if we were to look at commodity sales. So something we're looking to do now is we're negotiating our flow control commitments right now with Western Placer Waste Management Authority. And this is going to allow us to have a 10-year commitment with a 5-year opt-out so we can further look at our other options and we can drive our costs down and also look for more capacity into the future. So those agreements right now are currently being negotiated. They're going back and forth between us and Western Placer. But what we're ultimately looking to have happen is to have a 5-year opt-out that allows us to look at other options 5 years from now. So with that, that really concludes our presentation for EU. Does anybody have any questions?
Go ahead.
Is that back up and running now, the sorting? I know with the fire a couple months ago it was out.
So the sorting is somewhat back up and operating. So they're extracting approximately 8%. What they're supposed to extract from the waste streams about 23%. They're looking to I would say, I don't want to, baling wire, can kind of get it back together. The new operator will start in July, and then that system will be removed, and an entire new system will be upgraded into that facility.
Like a new conveyor belt?
A whole new MRF system, yeah, a whole new material recovery facility would be put into that building.
Okay. So you're thinking about us just doing that, the city of Roseville doing that on its own, having its own city employees do the sorting and manning a system like that?
Yeah, so when we looked at the economic study, from an economic standpoint, it's more beneficial for us to own those assets and do that ourselves. But what it also does is it gives us long-term control over where we take those materials, so we're not dependent necessarily on a third party. We will always be dependent on a third party for disposal, landfilling, because we don't really have an interest to get into the landfill business because of the long-term liability of that. But it will give us more options in the region and additional capacity.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Is there any interest in public comment at this time? Well, thank you for your update. Next on our agenda is board member and commissioner reports. Does anyone have a report they'd like to make tonight?
None.
No? Okay. Any other reports from staff?
Nothing from me.
Okay. Does anyone have any future items they'd like to have on the agenda? Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
And may I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
That was a short meeting.